Hi, everybody. Joe Chaffee here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. And coming up Sunday at 12 noon, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast as we talk about this next storm system coming out of the southern plains and heading for the East Coast. We moved the show till noontime so that it doesn't interfere with the Super Bowl. So we'll see you tomorrow at noontime for the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Well, we've already got winter storm watches up. I'll get to those in a moment, but out to the west, we also have winter storm warnings up for northwestern Texas, northeastern, and actually most of eastern New Mexico and eastern Colorado. Winter weather advisories surrounding that going across Oklahoma and into northwestern Arkansas and northward up into western Nebraska. Meanwhile, they decided, I guess, to bite the bullet early, and they put winter storm watches up for central Pennsylvania, eastward to northern New Jersey, just about all of the Hudson Valley except the extreme southern part, and all of Connecticut north of Route of I-95, as well as Rhode Island north of I-95, and much of Massachusetts except for the southeast. We also have, because of the full moon we just went through, we've got various coastal flood advisories and some high surf issues that they're dealing with along the coast. And that's some of the other colors that you see off of southeastern New England, as well as in parts of southern New Jersey, along the Delaware River Basin, and then also down into Chesapeake Bay. We are waiting for a cold front to pass through. It's a relatively weak one. Ahead of it, temperatures shot up through the 50s to around 60 degrees in the Northeast and down into the northern mid-Atlantic states. Got a little bit warmer than that as you went further south. A lot dependent on whether you got the sun to come out or not. Many areas dealt with clouds for most of the day, and that sort of shut the heating part of this off. The air behind this front is a little cooler, but it's not really especially cold. And this is one of the problems that we have with our forecast for this storm system that we're going to be dealing with on Tuesday. There's not going to be uh, much cold air ahead of it. There will be dynamic cooling with the developing low, and that we'll have to see how that plays out, and some colder air behind it, but nothing of an Arctic nature. Meanwhile, across Texas, you can see low pressure in southeastern New Mexico is beginning to develop there with a stationary boundary that runs eastward into southern Oklahoma and then becomes that cold front across Arkansas, western Tennessee, and on up into western Pennsylvania and western New York. There might be a few showers with that ahead of it. And you can see the Pacific moisture as it's been streaming out of the Pacific since yesterday across the Gulf states, kind of priming the atmosphere up for this next storm system. And of course, the cloud cover that has moved across parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states today. And here's the radar as of a little after 4 p.m. Eastern time. We've got some rain showers up in parts of Maine, upstate New York. Then there's a bit of a gap. And then there's some other showers across southern Virginia. And then it becomes more widespread with rain through Tennessee, northern Mississippi, back over into northern Louisiana and much of Arkansas into northeast Texas. And then you go further west and you see the areas of snow on the radar in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, into northwest Nebraska, and also now running up into eastern New Mexico, and eventually will be spreading out across northwest Texas. As far as precipitation is concerned, in terms of melted precip, we're talking about the half-inch line getting up into the Hudson Valley, not too far from Albany, and also right along the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border. That's where we see that the leading edge of a half an inch. And then it's mainly 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter from southeastern New England, south and west into the Ohio Valley and back into the southern plains. And of course, we have this large area of an inch and a half to 2.5 inch rainfalls being indicated from southern Virginia throughout the southeast and across the Gulf states, and more precipitation for the west from San Diego all the way up the coast to Seattle. Although it's not excessive, we've got some areas of an inch and a half plus north of San Francisco, but most areas on the order of 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter over the next 7 days. All right, let's take a look at what WPC is telling us with their probabilities for snow. This is the probability for at least 2 inches in the Northeast. And I like to use that 50% line, which is not the darkest blue, but the next shade lighter. So that crosses parts of southeastern Pennsylvania, mainly near Harrisburg to about Trenton to Sandy Hook, going across the south shore of Long Island. So from there, north and west, it's a pretty good shot that you're going to get at least two. And of course, in that salmon and red color, we're talking about 80 to 100% probability for at least two. The probability for at least four, again, using that 50% line, runs through northern Hunterdon County in New Jersey to about New York City. So WPC's got a 50% chance for at least four there. And you're talking about a 75 to 80% chance across northern New Jersey and much of interior Connecticut and Rhode Island. Pretty much where you see that light blue uh, covers where all the winter storm watches are up. And they even have an area of probability for at least eight of 50% from parts of central and northeastern Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, into the Hudson Valley, back up into the Catskills, and across much of interior Connecticut north of Route 15 in all of the state of Massachusetts and northern Rhode Island. As far as other areas go, we'll just widen this out a little bit. We'll take you into that area that we have winter storm warnings up in New Mexico and Texas. And you can see this is the probability for at least 2 inches. And if I bump it up to the probability of at least four, 50% or higher in the winter storm warning areas for northeastern New Mexico, northwest Texas, and southeastern parts of Colorado. Okay, let's look at the models here as we take a look at this low. Obviously, with this weather front coming through, other than a shower running around this evening, no big problems here in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. Sunday should be a dry day. There will be rain going by to our south across Virginia, might clip southern New Jersey, but that goes out. The developing low starts to come out of Louisiana and Mississippi, runs its way up the Appalachians, then makes a center jump off the Delaware coast. We're looking at snow breaking out late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, probably say at around 2 or 3 a.m. And you can see that large area of dark blue across Pennsylvania. The low center by morning will be east of Delaware Bay, and snow will be falling throughout much of the winter storm watch area. Certainly, it's a little bit dicier along the coast as to whether it probably will start off as some rain and then change over to snow as the upper air dynamics take control. It continues into the early afternoon, and then the snow ends from west to east as the low strengthens and moves away and brings some heavier snows on up to Nova Scotia. So, what we're going to be paying attention to, and I'm going to bring up this map shows what's referred to as FGen or frontogenesis, and it really shows the maximum areas of forcing in the atmosphere, where you've got that warm air and interacting with the colder air, and the area where you see all that darker purple. This is Tuesday morning across eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and over Long Island and the Hudson Valley. So this is where we would expect the strongest dynamics. We're going to have to watch this closely because oftentimes when you have dynamics that are this strong, that could, in and of itself, cool the atmosphere down considerably. And this also would probably be the area where you could see the heaviest precipitation in the all that really dark purple that you see over New Jersey into southern New England and Long Island. It'll remain to be seen how much of that is snow and how much of that winds up being rain. And then, of course, as the storm moves away, we will see weather conditions start to improve later on in the day. And with respect to next week, once we get that storm system out of here, we are going to see slightly colder conditions coming into the eastern part of the United States for Wednesday and Thursday. And then next weekend, they're probably going to have some kind of storm system coming out of the Gulf states and moving up the East Coast. And there's going to be some colder Arctic air that's going to be coming down out of Canada behind that one. So it's a bit of a race here. The storm running up into marginal cold air, and then you have some very cold air that comes in behind it for the days that follow, let's say toward the end of the President's Day holiday weekend. So it just gave you an early glimpse of the holiday weekend there. Okay, so don't forget the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast tomorrow, normally at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be on at noon tomorrow, Sunday. So mark it down, and we will see you then.